Picture this. A regiment of American soldiers holds the front line longer than almost any other unit in World War I. Not 1 foot of ground lost, not one man taken prisoner. The French considered them legends and gave them their highest honors. And when the war ended, the U.S. Army still wouldn't let them march home with the other American divisions. I know. Let that sink in for a second. You're walking through Harlem today. Barbershops, brownstones, jazz clubs, corner churches. Totally normal day. But here's the thing. Nothing on that street tells you that the guys who used to live there did something the U.S. Army literally said was impossible. They fought in a world war. And not just fought. They held the line longer than almost any other unit in the entire war. Came home with more medals, more glory, more wounds than most Americans even realize. And then, the country they bled for basically pretended they didn't exist. This is the 369th Infantry Regiment. You probably know them better as the Harlem Hellfighters. These guys never lost a single foot of ground. Not one man was ever captured, and yet, they never got the respect they straight up earned. Honestly, this is one of the wildest stories in American military history, and barely anyone even knows it. So let's get into it. 1916. America's not in the war yet. Europe's already tearing itself apart. Trenches from the English Channel to Switzerland. Millions dead, no end in sight. But there's another war going on at home. Quieter, just as brutal. Jim Crow in the South, segregation in the North. Lynchings the government won't even prosecute. The Army? Segregated too. Black men can serve, but only in separate units, under white officers doing the jobs nobody else wants. Then in New York, something different starts. The 15th Infantry Regiment, New York National Guard, made up almost entirely of black men from Harlem. At the time, one of the most electric black communities on earth. Musicians, laborers, lawyers, poets, doormen and doctors in the same line. The Army sees a problem unit. These men see an opportunity. They want to fight, not just for their country, for themselves, for history. Getting there is about to get ugly. No one will give them a place to train. White units won't share facilities. Armies turn them away. At one point, they're drilling in a dance hall because that's literally all that's open to them. Their commander, Colonel William Hayward, a white Nebraska lawyer who talked his way into the job and actually means it, recruits the most famous band leader in America to build a regimental band. His name? James Reese Europe. Carnegie Hall, the Clef Club, the most powerful black musician in the country. Hayward convinces him to enlist and bring his musicians with him. James Europe pulls in Puerto Rican players from the woodwinds and builds a 40-man band that can play jazz, ragtime, and military marches like weapons. That band's about to get almost as famous as the regiment. But first, they have to get to the war. America declares war. The 15th gets called up. They fought for the right to fight. Now they need somewhere to go. It's about to go very wrong. Training camp. Spartanburg, South Carolina. Disaster. The mayor publicly says he doesn't want them there. Locals won't seat them on streetcars, won't serve them in stores, hurl slurs in the street. Now, you've got armed, trained men watching their own country treat them like criminals for existing. It almost turns violent. The Army, scared of what happens if these men fight back, ships them out after just 3 weeks. They board the USS Pocahontas and sail for France before Christmas 1917. Not because they're ready early, but because Spartanburg isn't safe. For the white civilians that keep provoking them, they land in France. New problem. Nobody wants them. No American commander knows what to do with a black regiment. White units refuse to fight beside them. So the Army solution? Hand the whole regiment to the French. Every man, every weapon. The 15th Infantry becomes the 369th Infantry Regiment, U.S. Army, under permanent French command attached to the French Fourth Army. The French, already 3 years into the bloodbath, are thrilled to have them. Spring 1918. The 369th hits the trenches. Barbed wire, shell craters, mud. Bodies that never get buried. Gas drifting in without warning, rats the size of cats. They're posted near the Argonne Forest. Their job? hold the line, and survive. 191 days straight, no rotation. No other American unit spends more continuous time on the front. Not 1 foot of ground lost ever. Not 1 man captured. Then, one night in May 1918, Private Henry Johnson, 20 years old, baggage handler from Albany. He's on sentry duty with Private Needham Roberts. It's 2 a.m. A German raiding party, 24 men, hits their position. Roberts goes down wounded. Johnson takes multiple hits. Both should be dead. The Germans try to drag Roberts off as a prisoner. Johnson won't stop. He uses every bullet in his rifle, then uses the rifle like a club. The stock breaks. He pulls his bolo knife and goes hand to hand, 12-1 odds. The Germans retreat. Roberts isn't taken. They find Johnson covered in blood, 21 wounds. Somewhere between 4 and 28 enemies down, by himself. France gives him the Croix de Guerre with gold palm, their highest honor. One of the first Americans to get it. American papers call him Black Death. He tours the country to massive crowds. The U.S. Army gives him nothing. No medal, no recognition, not for 80 years. While the regiment fights, the band is making history of its own. James Reese Europe and his musicians tour France. For American troops, French soldiers, French civilians, anyone in earshot. Because the French have never heard jazz before. They start with marches, then they switch it up. The rhythm is irregular, driving, and alive in a way nothing in Europe sounds. The crowds lose it. French musicians check the instruments afterward, convinced something mechanical must be making that sound. Nope, that's just Harlem. Europe's band is introducing jazz to an entire continent, almost by accident, through a regiment the Army tried to give away. Back home, the Black Press, the Chicago Defender, the New York Age, covers the 369th obsessively. The white press barely mentions them, but the story travels through black communities anyway. Eventually, word gets out. September 1918, the Allies launch their final push. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the largest military operation in American history. Over 1 million troops. The 369th is in the middle of it, fighting alongside the French through the most heavily defended German positions on the front. Forests turn to splinters. Villages turn to rubble. Ground so soaked in mustard gas, the smell never leaves the survivors. Armistice. 11 a.m., 11th day, 11th month, 1918. By then, the 369th has pushed further into enemy territory than any other American unit in the offensive. France moves fast. The entire 369th, every man, gets the Croix de Guerre. Not a few standouts, the whole regiment. 171 individual citations on top of that. The US spends the next several decades just debating whether to say thank you. February 17th, 1919, the 369th marches up Fifth Avenue. 2,000 men, rifles up, bayonets fixed. James Reese Europe's band out front. A crowd so massive it's pushing against police lines. It starts in Lower Manhattan. By 110th Street, turning into Harlem, everything changes. 10, 20,000 people. Women weeping, men throwing their hats, kids hoisted on the shoulders. The New York Times calls it one of the most impressive parades the city's ever seen. For one afternoon, they get everything they're owed. Then the country moves on. Henry Johnson comes home a hero, but he can't get a job. He tours for a while. The spotlight fades fast. He ends up a laborer, struggling with alcohol, still carrying the damage from 21 wounds the Army never paid to treat. In 1929, he dies, 32 years old, broke, forgotten. James Reese Europe is murdered in May 1919, backstage in Boston, stabbed by his own drummer, 39 years old. W.E.B. Du Bois calls it a national tragedy, one of the great architects of American music, gone before he sees what he unleashed. Then comes the summer of 1919, Red Summer. Race riots explode across the country. White mobs attack black neighborhoods, city after city. Nearly 40 dead in Chicago alone. In D.C., black veterans who just fought in France are fighting for their lives on American streets. Some of the same men who volunteered first held the line longest, bled in the Argonne, come home to find their neighbors being murdered and their government silent. So they fight back. The 369th didn't teach them to take it lying down. For most of the 20th century, the Hellfighters live in the footnotes. 1988, New York names a stretch of 7th Avenue the 369th Regiment Memorial Highway. 1991, Henry Johnson gets the Purple Heart, posthumously. 1996, he gets the Distinguished Service Cross. 2015, 97 years after that night in the Argonne, President Obama awards Henry Johnson the Medal of Honor. He'd been dead for 86 years. Needham Roberts gets his Medal of Honor the same day. The unit's still active, too. The 369th Sustainment Brigade, New York Army National Guard. Deployed to Iraq, responds to disasters, they're still on the roll. This isn't a comfortable story. It's a story about a country that demanded everything from men it refused to call fully human, and men who gave everything anyway. Not because they were naive, but because they understood what America could be, because they were fighting for each other. 191 days, 0 ground lost, 0 men captured. 1 afternoon of glory, then a century of being erased. But history's got a long memory. And these men are too extraordinary to stay buried. If this one hit you, hit like, hit subscribe. More of these are on the way. Comment below, whose story should I tell next? There are 1,000 more just like this one. History lives in every grain of the hourglass. See you in the next era.